Good morning. It's it's still early May, and finally the sun's out. It seems, and we might get a beautiful day out of it and get some things done around the yard. My wife and I have been sheltering in place, a term that I'm getting sick and tired of hearing, but we're still adhering to necessarily. And it seems that not just my wife and I, but even my figs have kind of been shoved into a situation where they're sheltering in place too, because it's been so darn cold this spring of 2020. Extraordinarily cold. And so I've been keeping a lot of my figs in the greenhouse, especially during the nighttime. I shuffle them out when I can into the natural sun, as I do my other crops that I'm growing. There's kale and iceberg and romaine lettuce, and these are broccoli rabe, which we love to have greens. It's part of my growing affinity towards the concept of self-reliance, which has been culminating over the years of my life. I've recognized over time the importance of not just being reliant and dependent on society for all of my needs, but to try and be resourceful and grow a lot of my own vegetables and greens and tomatoes and peppers. And here's some spinach, some beautiful spinach that I'm going to be planting probably today. Here's some basil, and I'll be growing these in successive stages. Some more lettuce, different kinds, which I love. I'll be putting in more seeds and growing more to put in the ground at a later date, so that I have a fresh supply, a new supply, essentially all summer long. A lot of people think you can't grow some of these things in the summer, and you can. Especially if you have a partially shaded area, you can have fresh greens actually from early spring till late fall, which is my intention. But I haven't been free to plant my crops as early as I would ordinarily have planted them, because it's been very extraordinarily cold at night, for frost warnings and freeze warnings. Once again, that's kale. Very nutritious, one of the most nutritious greens in the world. I highly recommend it. But getting back to the freeze and the temperatures and the extraordinary spring, I've just kind of been delayed and handicapped, kind of, which is okay, because these little guys, my little babies here, and all of my fig trees are doing quite nicely, and they're experiencing a lot of new growth, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful crop nonetheless, in spite of the chilly spring that we've experienced. You see, here's a little baby Smith that I took off of an air layer last fall. It's a little late, and you can see that it's sprouting, but it's not doing too well. I think I'll save it. I can see a bud coming up now. The cold weather hasn't helped much, but you have to absorb the failures with your successes. Here's another This is Malta Black, and it just never, this was also a late air layer, and it just never grew properly. But those are rare exceptions. Just about everything else. Here's another late, same thing, Negroni. That one's not going to make it. It's dead. And so it goes. But most of the air layers that I have, and I have some in my barn now that I sheltered. I had them out yesterday, getting a little sunshine, and I put them in the barn at night because I don't have quite enough room here in my greenhouse. But most everything is flourishing, doing very, very well. And again, I'm looking forward to a wonderful 2020 season. I just thought I'd share some ideas with you. You know, there is something I would like to discuss, and I had a very good friend call me, or actually texted me, and he was asking about my method that I use. I call it my ground bag method, where I'm going to sit right down here in the greenhouse. This is nice and comfortable. I don't want this video to be too long, but I haven't made many videos recently, and it's getting around that time. Man, look at these little guys. Look at that. Could be a little persimmon. But anyway, and he said that he wasn't having great luck with the ground bag method. And he had planted his trees that he had dug up in the fall, like I do, many of them. This one happens to be a Nordland. Very good variety that I've talked about before, and I highly recommend it for the Northeast. Just a great variety. Very practical to grow. Not a prima donna fig. I mean, it produces, and they're good quality. I'm even going to plant this one in the ground, I think, permanently, and give it a try, because it seems to be nice, good in winter hardy. There's another ground bag tree you can see that I dug up. That's Sultane, and it's doing marvelously. But my point is, he had planted his trees early in the spring with this extraordinary cold weather, and I asked him, why did you do that? The whole idea of the ground bag method, for those of you that are interested, and it works very well for me, is to dig your trees up in the fall, and they would have done very well. You see the roots? They would have done very well being in the ground. You don't have to worry about the wind blowing them down. You don't have to water them as much. Their roots get to spread out. And the fig tree is vigorous and productive. And at the same time, the bag, what remains of it, it compacts the roots. And experienced growers know that when you compact the roots of fig trees, they are far more productive than if you do not. If you grow them freely in the ground, okay, they're productive. If you can really experience good results from the winter time, which in certain zones, zone 7A I'm in, you can't always guarantee that. Many times the trees will die, so to the ground. And so I cover my trees, but you can only cover so many trees. But this technique allows me to dig them up in the fall, so I don't have to worry about the cold winter. Okay. I still get production because the roots are compressed, more so than if I let them grow freely in the ground, where the roots would just spread all over the place, and I get a lot of growth, but no figs. And I can put them in shelter and storage, and in the spring, I can plant them again in the ground, and everything starts all over again. And they're productive, and they won't blow over, and they won't require as much water as other container figs. Well, the important thing here is you can't, in the spring, you can't plant them too early. The whole idea is to get an early start with your ground bag method. The whole idea is to dig them up in the fall, protect them from the winter cold, and then in the spring you dig them up. I mean, in the spring you get them out and you start to acclimate them to the sun, get them ready to plant in the ground, but you delay the planting. You don't do it right away. You wait until they get a good start like these are getting. And after they've gotten a good start, and I'll be planting them soon, probably the middle of May or something, I'll be planting these. You plant them in the ground again, and you've got an early start. So you remember, early with figs, especially in the Northeast. Early. I've tried to drive that point home multiple times. It's just so essentially crucial. It's essential that we grow our figs in a manner that they will produce early in the season. Because once you get towards August and the nights start to get cold, and certainly September, and you get into the rainy season, the fig quality when they produce late, and beyond that period too, it's just not, it's not even close in comparison to when you have figs maturing and ripening in July. Okay, in July and early August, or even August. But after that, you can get some crops, but you are being exposed to the rainy period, cold nights. The figs aren't going to be as sweet. They're not going to be as delicious. They're not going to be as high quality. So we take our ground bag and we delay planting it in the ground again until mid-May, and I've said many times until at least May 10th, because then danger of frost is essentially over, not before that. And I've said that before. It's important. I would wait until the 15th, and that's what I advise my friend. Wait until the 15th of May to plant your figs in the ground. Now, the ones that you have in the ground already, that are in the ground continuously, that's a different matter, but they're being covered, and you don't want to fully lift the covers or remove the covers until you're sure that there's not going to be any more frost. And getting back to early fruition, you might have noticed that I've got these containers, these 5-gallon containers of water in here, and there's a reason for that, and I've mentioned this also in previous videos. I will never water my fig trees, any of them, or anything else in the yard with cold water. So I let the greenhouse warm up the water all day long. And when it gets nice and warm, like this one is, that's when I water at the end of the day. And that makes a big difference in early fruition. Incrementally now, understand, if you do it once, it's not going to make a big difference. But if you do it every day, if it's a common practice that you don't water your figs with cold water, then you're going to get early fruition. And it works. I can tell you that I'm successful with that. Before I had a greenhouse, I used to carry the buckets actually in the house or keep them in the shed where they would warm up during the day and then water, because it makes a big difference, especially in springtime when the ground is so still cold. It's so cold. It takes, I've always said, I don't even mulch my trees until the summer solstice. I've said that too. And that might sound a little alien to some people, but why would you mulch the ground in the spring? To keep the cold in the ground and to keep the sun from radiating on the surface of the ground, warming the ground, and therefore helping you towards your ultimate goal, which is what again? Early fruition, especially with figs in the Northeast. So I don't ever mulch my trees or my pots. You can see this. No mulch. None. I don't do it. Never. Not until the summer solstice. Not until June the 21st. And then it's like a regiment. You know, I mean, it's systematic with me. I start to mulch, and I'm mulching mostly to retain moisture, because I know by then the ground has warmed up sufficiently and I don't have to worry about keeping the ground cold by mulching too soon in the spring. Does it make a difference? Yes. You see, none of these are mulched, and none of them are going to be mulched. And does it make a difference? It certainly does. It makes a difference because the soil temperature stays warm or accumulates heat and warms up more efficiently without the mulching. And that's the same with my in-ground figs. Of course it is. Of course it is. No mulch until you need to apply mulch to conserve moisture in the Northeast. Now, in other climates, of course, you would go by a different rule book, I'm sure. Just thought I'd provide you with that information. And some people ask me, why do I do the things that I do? They don't understand it. And so I'm trying to explain why. Because I want early fruition. That's why. And with figs, it's paramount. It's of tremendous importance to remember to follow that theme, that concept. Always, always be cognizant, constantly cognizant of your goal of producing early figs. And if you can do that, you're going to be rewarded in the very best way that you possibly can where figs are concerned, because that's where you're going to get your highest quality figs, fresh, homegrown, organic figs. And this goes in with that concept of self-reliance. You know, we as Americans now, maybe this shutdown or shelter in place, this coronavirus thing that we've all experienced, has taught us a valuable lesson, or reinforced that lesson in people that already learned that lesson previously. And that is, we need to learn how to rely on ourselves in times of crises or any other ordinary time, I think. It's a good idea to practice self-reliance. And we can grow many, many, many of our own vegetables, many of our own fruits. I grow plenty of fruits. And I have persimmons. You've seen my videos. And I have figs. And I have mulberries. And I have strawberries. And I have blackberries. And I have raspberries. And I have all kinds of berries and blueberries. And they're all over the place. And it's all in keeping with an increasingly important concept that I am adhering to more and more as I grow older. And that is, I love society, and I need to rely on society for goods and services. We all do. But I have learned that I can do a lot of things myself that I don't need to rely on others to do. I can grow my own strawberries like these. And I am. And my goji berries like these. And I am. And I can grow my own persimmons like these. And like those. And I do. And I can grow my own blueberries like these. And I do it. And they're loaded. And I'm looking so forward to my blueberries. It's still early in the year, so it's going to be a wait, but they're going to come. They're going to come to fruition. And it's a wonderful thing to have things come to fruition in different stages. Everything has its own time period where it blooms and blossoms and comes to fruition. And many times that's a time that's different from another fruit or another berry. And this is in keeping with the concept that you always are generating a supply, if you will, of fresh produce. That's my goal. become less reliant on others and more self-reliant. And I know that I'm growing organic foods, and I can trust that. You can't always trust that you're buying organically out there in the real world. There's been many scandals about false labeling and so on and so forth. Wherever people can make a buck, it seems, you always find the worst of them. That's something I've learned also during my lifetime. Well, this has been a longer video than I intended. Can anybody guess what these are? I'll bet you there's many people out there that do know. And I've made videos about these as well. I'll leave it for a mystery. Well, thank you for visiting today. It was enjoyable. It's a wonderful day. It's just beautiful. I can't wait to get working here. Start planting my spinach and my parsley, and I've got broccoli rabe, and I've got all different types of lettuce and basil. I'm going to put it in the ground today, and we're going to start the season, the growing season, the in-ground growing season. And I'm going to take some of these plants, maybe not today, maybe another week, some of my ground bags, and when I'm pretty sure the nights are going to be warm enough, I'm going to plant them in the ground too. And I'm looking forward to a great season. Everyone, I wish you all a great season. I wish you all well. Please stay safe. Once again, thank you for visiting. Good day. Wow. Look at, woo! Look at the size. That is a fig leaf. My goodness, that's Smith, I believe. Is it? No, it's not. No, that's long yellowneck. Wow. Look at the size of that leaf. It's huge. Early. Take care.